And all right. So let's just start with you introducing yourself. I think most people who are involved in the BDRs know who you are, but just in case.
Yeah. So I'm Ina Thorn. I'm the executive director of the Backcountry Discovery Routes organization. I have been with the org for 10 years now. Basically was hired, I think it was the third year since the organization was founded. They were releasing the Colorado BDR film. And at that point, I was working with Touratech USA as a marketing consultant. And obviously, we know that the Touratech USA was the founding sponsor of the BDR. So through my work with them, they said, we're kind of outgrown our volunteer resources for the BDR and would love to hire somebody who can help steer the organization in the right direction. And having had a nonprofit experience and then obviously passion for motorcycling and having gone on a trip to South America on my motorcycle, that was a perfect kind of combination for my skills and experience and passion. So that's how I ended at the BDR. And I can believe that it's been a decade now. It's pretty crazy to think about.
You definitely ended up in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, actually in Seattle, we have a number, and in the Pacific Northwest, we have a number of companies that are in the adventure space. So yeah, you're right. Like it's kind of it was a perfect mix of everything that kind of came together.
And so where's the BDR organization at today compared to like when you took it over as a nonprofit?
I always like look back to the first phone call I had to make to a touring company that I don't think even exists anymore. And I was selling them, I think, an ad on the website for $300. And I had to explain why they needed to be listed on our website and what the potential was for their marketing, efforts. Needless to say, we're years ahead now. We've got over 40 adventure brands in the industry that are supporting us. People are calling us, like even OEMs, when they have a new bike that's coming to the market in the adventure segment, they call BDR because like we are probably the best um, opportunity in the industry to introduce new products, new bikes to the consumer. I mean, that's just one example. We've obviously have grown our staff. We have now 3 full-time employees in the office, a couple contractors. We finally moved out of the Touratech attic. Let's say that. Yeah, it was, you had to climb the stairs to get there. And we were there for 10 years. Every time I go there and see that space, I just can't believe that like we were there for 10 years. So yeah, it's just exciting to see how the organization has grown. I mean, our community has just exploded. This is the kind of most exciting thing that's happening in the motorcycle industry, this adventure segment. It's also been really fascinating to see the growth of companies, many touring training companies, as well as the product manufacturers. I remember them just starting out with, a great idea, or like a person with an engineering mind who wanted to improve on the existing selection of lights or, luggage or aftermarket parts. And then just see people in these companies grow with us and help grow this community, be part of it. That's really exciting to me as well.
Yeah, it's been crazy to watch kind of the transition from you. Previously, you had like enduro dual sport stuff and you had touring stuff. And then now kind of adventure biking is combining those into like, well, yeah, it's touring on a bike because you're living off of the bike, but you're also doing some fairly difficult off-road.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of guys who, for example, have ridden dirt bikes when they were young, and then they had kids and careers, and finally they might be retired or they have more time and resources to devote to their passion. And it really mixes the best of everything. It's a sport, so you have to be in shape, you overcome challenges just riding the route, and then you get to see these amazing places that you would never find yourself at unless you were riding your bike. It's like, where does that dirt road lead? Needless to say, during COVID years, like we were flourishing, like everybody had time.
Everybody was planning the trips that they've been wanting to do for years because you're stuck.
Yeah, and finally you had the time to do it, and so yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It just touches on so many aspects of your life, and so yeah, I'm not surprised that it's been growing so much.
Well, so I reached out to a bunch of my subscribers and stuff and just said, what questions, if you could ask, if you could sit down across from me to Thorn, what would you ask? And I got some interesting ones, but so we'll run down the list and see what we get. The Oregon BDR-X, when will that route actually go live?
Well, it's a timely question. June 7th, Wednesday, June 7th is when we will be doing the live broadcast and release of the route, the tracks, and all the resources. And actually, myself and our ambassador, Nathan Fand, who was the co-architect of the Oregon route and the BDR-X, we're going to be going to the Mosko Moto headquarters in White Salmon, Washington, which they happen to be basically at the end of the Oregon BDR and the beginning of Washington BDR, perfect location. So we'll be going over there, and we'll be doing a live broadcast and release of the route then on June 7th.
And that's roughly, where is that in Oregon?
Yeah, so it basically is, it's a Steens Mountain and Alvord Desert BDR-X. It shares the beginning location with the Oregon BDR. And so it's a cool route because you basically go from mountains into the desert. So you get to experience this change in scenery. It's a somewhat challenging route. It's only 2 days. So, in Mosko Moto, they have been kind of hanging out and doing their events on the Alvord Desert Playa. So a perfect combination there, the presenting of the route, not to spill the beans, but there's going to be an exciting segment at the end of the film that involves myself.
Oh, did you have a good one?
I had a really good one.
Oh,
a good one that prevented me from actually going and filming the Oregon BDR. So,
is that why you weren't on that route?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you break anything, or was it at least?
Well, you're just gonna have to see on June 7th.
That's good to know. Well, I'm glad you're okay.
Yes, I'm okay.
Are you guys ever planning on doing a route in Canada?
I mean, at some point we will run out of states, rideable states in the United States. So, it's definitely in the future. People also want us to do the Baja BDR and go into Mexico. I mean, I think, for the perceivable future, at least in the next 7 to 9 years, or the next decade, let's just say, I think we have enough routes to do in the United States. But then after that, hopefully, I don't know if I'll still be at the BDR, but somebody will be. So yeah, I mean, I can see us doing stuff in Canada.
Yeah, no, I think you guys have enough on your plate for a bit before you're going to be branching out internationally. I had one person to ask. So the PA Adventure Trail, Pennsylvania Adventure Trail, runs right through the same area between the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast BDRs. And they phrased it kind of funny because they were like, well, what's wrong with using the PA Adventure Trail to connect to the MA and NE BDRs? And my snarky answer was, no one said there was anything wrong with it in the first place. But it might be something for you guys to look at to put on the website, because I looked at it and it runs right through there. It goes right from like midway up Section 8 in the Mid-Atlantic BDR and connects to within like 50 miles of the start of the Northeast BDR. And it would just be a more interesting way to kind of connect those two routes potentially.
Yeah, I mean, on the website for some of the routes, we do have connector tracks. I mean, absolutely, we're interested in looking at it. If the track exists and somebody wants to email routeinfo@ridebdr.com and let us know about that, we'll definitely look into it. The one thing, we don't want to repurpose other people's routes. So if if somebody created it, like, we don't want to just post it without their permission. So if there's an author to that route who wants to get in touch with them, yeah, we would absolutely love to make that connector.
That's got to be kind of tricky for you guys of like, you don't want to just adopt somebody, that's probably why the Oregon BDR took as long as it did, was because there was already the Oregon BDR trail system and you didn't want to step on somebody else's toes.
Yeah, and anytime we start developing a route in any state, we obviously would first reach out to local riders and see if somebody has tracks. But if routes already exist, and those resources exist for riders, we definitely don't want to do the same thing. And so all of our routes are 100% original and created by the BDR team or scouting volunteers. So there's no need to introduce something that already exists. So we want to produce and introduce more new resources for people. So I mean, the case with Oregon too, there's just so much great writing in there that it didn't make sense to just trace the old route and clean it up. Ours actually is almost like completely,
It's like a mirror
different
image. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we always work with local volunteers and make sure we involve people who ride there and know the land.
The idea of bringing in local riders to plan a lot of that makes a ton of sense, just because you have all of that local knowledge that then gets brought in with it. So you don't risk, crossing somebody's land that's gonna, a year or two in be like, no, I don't want these people on crossing my property or, whatever.
We're stay on public roads for that reason, that the routes can live in perpetuity and we don't have to deal with private land issues. That's not to say that sometimes those issues arise, and we might do our due diligence and look at all the maps and compare all the digital resources, but there might be an easement that BLM has with the private landowner that is like completely impossible for us to see until we have the route, and then the private owner sees that there's the riders going through his land. So we deal with it. I mean, that's what part of the nonprofit mission is, to be the liaison between the landowners and land managers, and to make sure we stay on the right track, we stay only on public roads. So it is, it takes some work. Sometimes the route has been released and then we find out that there are some hot spots that need attention. So we that's part of what we deliver to the community.
And even on some of those, it's a public road, but like some of those remote areas in like Nevada and Wyoming and some, like, the only other people using those roads is the farmers and ranchers that live out there. So they don't necessarily have the opinion sometimes that it's a public road.
And they might have all the routes to that road, and the BLM is just leasing it from them for cattle or whatnot. So it's tricky, and but we're working through all the issues.
Yeah. Let's just do all of the route questions first to get them out of the way. Do you plan on doing a Michigan BDR anytime soon?
Yes, we've been talking about it. We've been talking to some local riders there. It's probably 4 or 5 years away, but we have started the process. Yeah, and then the Upper Peninsula is also very interesting.
That would be interesting in terms of like how to get people to there for a route, because it doesn't connect.
Yeah, well, it's for us to figure out.
Do you want to talk just briefly about what the planning process is for a route?
Yeah, I mean, it usually takes, about 5 years, like taking Oregon as an example. I think Bryce, our route architect, route development director, and the architect of, I think, 5 or 6 BDR routes, he has started scouting it, 6 years ago. I mean, they start with just looking at the maps, the atlas, the digital maps, Google Earth, and zooming in and seeing like where can the roads connect. They look at the typography and figure out, what looks interesting from a typographical and writing standpoint. They stitch some routes together, and then they go scout. And I mean, just talking to Nathan the other day, it took 2 years after Bryce provided some tracks for him to go out and see like what looks good, where do the roads go. And he went like every weekend during the riding season. I mean, that it takes hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I do want to say that, you know, a lot of the time when the riders meet our scouting crew or our board members on the trail and they're like, oh, you're with the BDR, I'd love to have your job. But it's actually like it's a volunteer position. Our
And
team
a lot
doesn't
of
get
work.
it's tons of work, tons of hours out of your day, you know, your own resources, your own bike, you pay for gas, you pay, you know, maybe you can, but maybe you need to stay in a hotel. Like BDR does not reimburse for it. And I just, you know, it's just a testament to how committed, you know, the people who are creating this, our scouting team, how committed they are to produce something for the public good, you know, and not get paid for it. So it, you know, that's really refreshing just to see that people are willing to give their time and energy and resources to create something for the larger community. But going back to, so yeah, you know, and then just scouting every weekend for a number of years. And then eventually we, you know, we pre-write it as a group, we film the documentary, and then it goes out.
And I think some people will kind of, I hear people complain sometimes about like where the route goes through or why doesn't it go through this. It's like you can't just do a zigzag up a state to get everything. And at the same time, you also have to get through some areas. Like there, you know, there's limitations on gas, there's limitations on, you know, just like you can't take a group of people through a national park, you know, stuff like that. And I think you guys do a pretty good job of setting up a route in a way to where it can be ridden by basically anybody.
Yeah, there's so many considerations for creating the route. Like you mentioned, the gas stations and lodging and making sure it's on public land, that, you know, there's a little store where you can resupply. But also the thing is BDR routes is just a starting point. You know, you can use it as a foundation, but nobody's to say that you can go and explore and do your own loop off of the BDR or whatever you want to do. So, you know, that criticism is kind of a mute point because, you know, the resources are free. Obviously, like if you think that you want to go and check out that part of the state, then go ahead and do it.
It's a guide, not a rule, because there's definitely people who are like set on, no, I must complete like this route exactly. And the route changes every year. I mean, there's fire diversions, there's weather, there's, you know, whatever it is. Like every year the route's a little different just because life.
Yeah, you know, and more so now that it's been a decade since like Washington, for example, route or Colorado. And when you send so much traffic, let's just take the Colorado route, for example, some of those passes are way harder now than they used to be 10 years ago. So we're actually now working with Butler Map on reprinting the new edition of the Colorado map, and we are questioning ourselves like whether or not the main route that it used to be the main route should be now an expert, and and the main route becomes an easier. So we're constantly looking at those questions, and
I
you know,
will say I'm glad that you took the Hancock Pass expert alternate out of there. Because I tried to do part of that on my 690 and it's a mess. It is a dirt bike route now at this point. And there was some stuff in like New Mexico and things like that. I mean, Chloride Canyon right now is a disaster area. And there's stuff that turns into expert only routes, you know, from one winter.
yeah, and thanks for your help on the and suggestions on the Chloride Canyon. We, you know, we just had our fundraiser ride in Elephant Butte there, and people rode. We did have a couple routes that went through Chloride Canyon. And, you know, guys had fun, but it was very challenging. So we just updated the map, making that an expert section, or we call it alternate harder because
Sure,
who knows.
yeah.
And, you know, made the main route easier. So yeah, these routes are kind of a living, breathing thing, and it's great that we have the resources to continue managing them and updating them, you know, every year.
And that's something I would definitely encourage other writers to do. Like, you guys accept feedback, And it's important to provide that feedback if you get back somewhere and you're like, oh, hey, they've rerouted the road. Like there's a gate here now and you need to go around. Like that's information you guys need to know. And you'll update stuff. I provided updates on the Northeast BDR for one section, and literally there was an update on it the next day of like, hey, here's a workaround because this is really gnarly.
No, it's helpful because it's a community effort, and without riders, we can't possibly ride all the routes every year, and so it is crucial that we hear back from the community and we'll adjust the routes accordingly. Now that we have Michael Biliki, who's our routes manager, so he is on top of all those updates. And just something for riders to know before you leave on the BDR, make sure you have the latest tracks, and that you've checked the update section just to see if there are any road closures that were, reroutes or something.
Yeah, the updates are clutch because there was definitely a few times where I was checking it like that morning because I wasn't sure what it was going to be. And it's like, oh, there's a bridge out. Like, oh, that's good to know. I know Montana BDR is coming out soon,
Yeah, let's see. So that's Montana is
like 3 years out-ish.
about 3 years. The next one next year will be the Northern California route, which is kind of cool because we basically you then can go from Mexico to Canada on the BDRs.
I was kind of hoping you would do something like that because it just makes too much sense.
Yeah, it does. And then the southeast route is heating up. It's in development, so that would be the next one after NorCal. And again, you'll have basically you can go from the Gulf, to Canada, all the way on the BDR, and then after that is Montana, which I personally is really looking forward to just get back to the Western states and just the beauty of the land. I can't wait for that route.
The only time I've ridden through Montana off-road was when I was on the Continental Divide, and it was incredible. The area along like the Montana-Idaho border where the Continental Divide just kind of zigzags along the border was some of the prettiest stuff I've ever seen.
I know it's the stuff of dreams. I've ridden there too, mostly on pavement. But like people from the rest of the world, like that's the type of stuff they never see elsewhere, but in the United States.
Idaho's a lot of the same stuff like that. Like Idaho's not super difficult riding, but it was some of the prettiest stuff I've ever been on a bike through. Like,
Yeah, that's one of the favorite routes. Like when we did our economic impact study, and we asked the question, like, what was your favorite route, or like, uh, Mid-Atlantic was the most ridden route, just I think because
just for
it's
population density. Yeah.
population and it's accessible. It's an easier route. But then Idaho is always second. Same thing because it's more accessible for riders. You don't have to be an expert rider, but it's just beautiful and remote. So yeah, I have not ridden the Idaho route, but that's definitely on my list.
I had one that I thought was funny. Plans for a Delaware BDR.
Okay, doesn't ring the bell from scouting conversations.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But I think I looked it up on Google and the entire state's like 60 miles long. So it'd be a very short route. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, maybe a part of a larger route somewhere.
Yeah, Northeast BDR-X or something. Yeah. Are you guys looking at Texas?
Yes, we
That's gonna be
are
hard.
working. Well, it's gonna be hard. So there are plans for a Big Bend, Texas BDR-X. We have scouted it, and we're actually going to be filming it either this year or beginning of next year. And the plan is to release it next year, sometime in the fall, so people can start riding it right away. And it's kind of a hybrid between like a BDR-X and a BDR. Obviously, it would be really hard to make a statewide Texas BDR, but there's some incredible riding down in Big Bend and big distances.
You'd almost have to do it kind of like California, but do like a northwest and a southeast or something like.
Yeah, and tons of private land, so it would be hard to make a cohesive, interesting route. So, but I mean, I think like with this Big Bend BDR-X, it'll satisfy a lot of riders.
That's some of the best riding in Texas, so that makes a ton of sense.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Should be coming out next year.
Will you guys ever plan on doing a coast to coast route a la the Trans-America Trail or something like that?
No, our format is kind of, south to north, tracing the mountain ranges, and something like that already exists again. So no need to, reinvent the wheel. The resources for the coast to coast route.
I kind of figured, but whatever. What is the most challenging part of creating the route, would you say? We've talked about how challenging of a process it is, but like where's probably the biggest hangups?
I think like just coordinating, finding the right team to work with, making sure we have the right leadership in place to manage the scouting process, because there's many personalities and people come to us with their tracks, and then we have to like put this big group together and everybody has to get along. So there needs to be one boss that is leading the process, and it's usually a local. Like I'm thinking about the southeast route, or even the northeast. Tim, our board president, who was the architect of this northeast BDR, he had a great idea where he found a local in each state, and they were kind of the boss of that area, and it worked perfectly. But you have to see through people who are just there for their personal glory, or they don't agree with the way we do things, or they provide the tracks and then we don't incorporate them in the final route. So there might be some feelings hurt, but in all these years, we've always, I think that's part of the success of the BDRs. Our core team and people who get involved, they come to it without egos, with open heart, like wanting to give back. And so, so that's a little bit of a challenge, just making sure you have the right team in place and the right boss who can deliver in the end. Definitely the issue, and then also just finding the right roads, because you can create a route, but is it as best of a route as you can possibly produce? And that's why they go back over and over and try to find, is this road any better, scenic wise or difficulty wise? What is the right difficulty for people? Because it shouldn't be too easy. It's also shouldn't be so hard. So many considerations to create route that will satisfy the majority, and that it's the best route that we can possibly produce, because there's really no coming back. I mean, yes, we can make adjustments, and like actually specifically the Nevada route right now is kind of a problematic one for us, where we know that it definitely can be better, and so we just need to get our resources out there to rescout it and make it better.
I will say though that Nevada was one of the ones I enjoyed the most because I was just surprised at how nice it, like enjoyable it was.
It's an interesting process. Michael, our routes manager, and obviously Bryce, they're really good about looking at the map and figuring out what the riders need and how the proposed route fits into our formula. And constantly, before we release it, just making it better and asking all those questions ahead of time, to improve the route and produce the best possible track for people.
Yeah. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it?
I think it's just when people start riding it, or even like when we premiered the Oregon film, for example, this year in Portland. There's like 1,000 people in the theater, and just to see the excitement, and that community is just something else. They are so energized, and it was great to experience like that camaraderie and energy of all these people who are just pumped to go ride that route, because a lot of them maybe have ridden parts of the tracks, and to have this one big route that you ride over 7 days and you become a better rider and you hang out with your friends. And so I think that is just seeing how much our hard work behind the scenes, and kind of putting one brick next to the other and building, and then all of a sudden like thousands of people go and have experiences of a lifetime. And a lot of these trips, they change people's lives for the better. You probably know better than anyone, like how much it makes you a better person, like how much it just brings purpose to your life and makes you feel alive, and just like what our work does for people. I think that's the most exciting. Anytime we go out to rallies, or we exhibited, just to talk to people and see the excitement and the spark in their eyes from what we've done, to contribute to make their life better. Like that's I think why we're all involved in the BDR.
Whether you intended it to or not, when you started it, you have built a community, and now you're kind of responsible for it.
I mean, tell me, like, what, because you've written, most of the BDRs, like, why were you
Yeah,
doing
I mean,
them?
at this point, I've done all of them except for Oregon. I did most of mine solo, and
Yeah,
so
which is
you
kind
get
of
the
incredible.
experience of just living in your own head for, hours and hours in each day. So you really get a kind of a better feel for who you are as a person. You're self-sufficient, you're out there just kind of doing whatever you want to do, and it's just relaxing on a level that is kind of hard to describe to most people. Most people don't really get the opportunity to just unplug from everyone else and go do something where they don't have a schedule. I mean, there's times where you just kind of stop and you look around you and you're like, where in the hell am I? Like, how did I get here?
And sometimes you just like, I'm sometimes amazed, like, wow, these places exist, and like we would never know that, like, all these like Western towns and the rich history and the beautiful scenery. And it every time I get on the bike, and I don't ride very often because I've got family and all, but when I go on the bike, get on the bike and out there in nature, I am always like, my God, I need to be riding more, because that is what my soul desires. Like that is, yeah, it's almost like a, meditation. When you ride, you're in your head, and, like you think about your life and your place in life and on this earth and what is important to you. Um, and I don't know, it just feeds your soul. And then good things happen after that. I think, like, for you too, like I bet that you will see that all of a sudden, like, all these opportunities are going to come. You'll meet people, like-minded people, and I don't know, it's just there's something special about it.
What is something that most people don't know about the BDRs that you wish they did?
Well, I guess that one, and I don't want to be hung up on it, but like the fact that it is such a community effort, and it's from the heart, that all of these volunteers and scouting team members just do it, because they want to give something back. Like nobody gets paid. I mean, the staff obviously does, but all the scouting volunteers and the board, that is just a community effort, and that we always say it, BDR is by the community and for the community, and it's really true.
You're not a big corporation or something. You're not, like, probably the opposite example of it would be like the GS Trophy, because it's entirely run by BMW for BMW, whereas you're just doing it for the riders.
Yeah, and like we're just part of a big part of this ecosphere of industry partners and writers and magazines and online content creators, that we're all building this for people to go and enjoy the backcountry. So yeah, I guess just the fact that we're all at the BDR, it's all about the heart and giving back, I guess, is, don't forget that, you writers. So and it's like, when people download free GPS tracks, well, do give something back to the organization, because it doesn't go into people's personal pockets, but it helps us have more resources to create even more routes. I'm so proud of the fact that now we have these BDR-X routes, which are a lot more logistically probably easier to accomplish. You don't have to take too many days from your work or whatever. And so we've heard what the community was asking, and so our answer is yes, we can give you more riding opportunities. Here's shorter loops that, in different parts of the country where we might not have a big BDR, but there's still, we're capturing these great riding areas. In fact, we're going to be releasing the Black Hills BDR-X in July, and that's just a good example of, hey, here's an amazing riding area. There should be a BDR there. We can't make a full route out of it, but here's like a 3 to 4 day adventure that you could just, hop on your bike, experience it, and we make it so easy for you. So do support the BDR if you have experienced, positive effects of the work, of the volunteers.
So for a first timer, what would be the hardest part of riding a BDR for the first time? And then what would be the best part of riding a BDR for the first time?
Well, I do want to preface that by saying, make sure you get training, that riding a BDR is not your first overnight trip, that you have, that you've trained, you've
Probably
maybe
not having
practiced.
like your first time off road,
No,
depending on the
absolutely
route.
not.
But I mean, yeah,
I just, yeah, this is just such an important point to get across, that you have to prepare physically, mentally, your bike, your gear. You have to research like what it takes to ride a BDR. Yeah, so for the first one, I would say make sure you have a good small group of riding buddies together, that you guys studied the maps and all the resources we have on the website. You've read the FAQ, and you downloaded the latest tracks, and you looked at the updates page. You've practiced, a few overnight trips with your fully loaded bike. I mean, that's really it. I think preparation is key. And then once you're on the road, I mean, obviously you need to be able to read your GPS and know how to use a GPS. That's really important. That you have all the tools that you need to fix your flat tires and, anything that happens to you on the trail. But I think as long as you prepare, then it's easy. Then you just enjoy the ride. And certainly, not bad things, but like things will happen that will challenge
adventure.
you. Yeah, absolutely.
The thing that I always say is that adventure happens when things go wrong. And
Yeah, because
yeah, it's the reality.
adversity is adventure, because
Yes.
when you come home, what are the moments that you remember the most from the
Those are the
BDR trip?
stories that you tell, is all the things when everything was going
Absolutely.
wrong.
Yeah, at the moment you might be so flustered, and it's like the end of the world, the world, the sky is falling, but like somehow you work through it, you solve problems, you figure out what you need to do, how you get yourself out of that situation, but then it makes for a great story, and you'll be telling it over and over with, just so much excitement. But in the moment it was not that. I love that aspect.
Have you heard the thing about the types of fun? Type 1, type 2, and type 3 fun. So type 1 fun is fun while you're doing it. Type 2 fun is fun in retrospect when you tell the story. And type 3 fun is fun that you never want to do again and probably wasn't a whole lot of fun in the process. And so type 2 fun is the one that everybody wants to tell stories about because it was awful when you were doing it, but it's fun in retrospect.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really what it's about. I always say like BDR is a kind of a hero's journey for many people, because they're not easy, and you do get yourself in situations where like you have to solve problems or rescue yourself or whatever. And keep like it helps us grow, as riders, as individuals, and it humbles you, and so
You
I
learn
love
to
all
dig
those
deep.
aspects. Yeah, yeah, and it just makes you a better person. I mean, I can't say it enough that your ego gets shattered sometimes, but you come out of it a much, much, much better, much more positive person, hopefully. And also just the teamwork, and spending those nights with your friends around campfire, talking about things that happened that day. There's just nothing like it. Yeah.
Yeah, being able to share those experiences with other people is a unique kind of interaction because it's rare for groups of people now to kind of be challenged as a group. And so you have to get through it together. You kind of already talked about this a little bit, but how involved have manufacturers become with the BDRs? I mean, I know you've had obviously BMW, KTM, I believe Honda, and then for Northern California, I guess you have Zero.
Yeah, Zero and BMW will be sharing the spotlight, which is actually a first for us. For the last like 5 years internally, we were always thinking, man, wouldn't it be great if we had all OEMs involved every year? Maybe not at a top level, but it's to their advantage to keep the BDR organization going and to show that they support our community in the mission of the BDR. So this is the first year when we finally have achieved that. Zero was a sponsor on the Black Hills route that's coming out in July. But I think, the California route will be a test for those bikes, and, whether or not BDRs are rideable on electric bikes. And I think it's just such an exciting development, for us. I mean, obviously it's like, we don't tell you what is the best bike to ride. It's a personal preference, but to be kind of the first ones to see, okay, well, let's test these bikes, and what does a BDR look like on the electric bike? It certainly wouldn't be the same as just riding your old regular bike.
It'd be a very different experience.
You would have to plan for it, but I think it's doable. So it sounds like I might be actually testing the DSR-X on the California. So I have ridden it in Black Hills, and it was really cool, a really cool experience.
Electric bikes are a very different experience when you're used to a regular bike, just because you can climb stuff that you feel like you have no business going up.
Yeah, and then they're quiet, and it's just like a different sensory experience, but it's really addictive. Like, I want to get back on that bike. But yeah, we'll see. We'll need to do some preparation in terms of logistics for the trip, and figure out like how and where we charge them. But it's just great. I'm excited that we're part of this movement. And again, it's like, it's not for everyone. Some people are very anti electric bikes, for example, but we always say, a BDR can be done on any budget and any bike. And just for us to be able to show a variety of bikes that are capable of riding a BDR, I mean, that's all we can ask for.
Yeah. And so have manufacturers kind of started to almost use that BDR model to like develop to develop the features on new bikes? Is there any kind of interaction on that level, or is it more of just, we know people are doing these things, and so we need to have bikes that are capable of doing this?
Yeah, I think just, they see the popularity of adventure riding, and BDR is a huge part of making it front and center in the motorcycle industry. So that's just a big part of them seeing. I mean, and not just OEMs, but even apparel manufacturers are also seeing how much this segment is growing. It is the fastest growing segment of the motorcycle industry, and the most exciting, if I may say that. And so I'm surely they're looking at our films and feeds to see like what people are doing with these bikes, and what kind of features people are looking for, and then just knowing that if they have a bike to premiere to the community, like, well, BDR is a great opportunity to do that. Let's put that bike on the BDR in the film and see how it does.
How did you guys react when you heard about Harley releasing the Pan America?
I mean, the more the merrier. I'm so glad they did it, and I think it was a very successful launch. Obviously, like, some people liked it, some people didn't, but
there was definitely that initial reaction of like, I'm sorry, they're doing what?
Yeah, no, but good for them. I mean, that's, they're just looking into the future, and giving their customers what they need and what they want. So Harley's actually, we're in talks with them to partner and be a part of BDR ecosphere. So yeah, I mean, in my standpoint, like, let's just show all the bikes from middleweight 650s to 1200s, 1250s that they're all great on the BDR. It's just like which bike do you want? What speaks to you, you know? So yeah, from my standpoint, the more options are there for riders to satisfy everyone, the better.
Do you have any questions for BDR for the community out there? Questions for me? I mean, what do you want to know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just fascinated by your journey, and I want to. It's not often that a person, just goes out and does all BDR routes, mostly by yourself, right? And yeah, I guess just like I'm fascinated by your motivation for it, and like what you have gathered from all those travels. Like, what have you learned, or anything you want to share, having ridden all the routes?
I mean, it was an adventure. I mean, there was everything from I got evacuated by helicopter to nearly having to camp north of Tin Cup or Tin Sleep because I got into the mud because it rained on me in Wyoming and basically nearly had to just set up my tent on the side of the road because the road basically wasn't rideable. All the way to, you know, going across the southern part of Idaho where it's just wide open plains and the only thing man-made that you can see is the road that you're on. Setting out for it as a plan, it was one of those things where I kind of knew that it was probably possible. I just had to make the determination of like, okay, I'm going to go do this. Like the hardest part of any journey is making the decision to actually do it. And I think that's what probably stops the most people from doing a BDR is they feel like maybe it's not an achievable goal. And it is. It absolutely is. I was able to link up with people at different points along the ride. I did all of Washington with a group of guys that I literally just ran into. Did the Northeast BDR with a guy that I ran into just on the side of the road, and we were both doing the same route, and we linked up for the entire rest of it. Like, it is a community, and you help each other out when you need to, and you see the country in a different way than you've ever seen it before because I've gone through a bunch of the areas that I was on the BDRs, but on paved roads or in a car or whatever, and you just see it from a completely new light when you go through on a bike and you're off road and kind of going through the backcountry and you see things that you would never have any other opportunity to see. It changed kind of my perspective on where I wanted to go in the future and how I wanted to do this travel thing. And at the same time, it also showed me just how accessible it is for people. You don't have to go out and do the entire route at once. You don't even have to go out and you definitely don't have to go out and do all of them. But just even going out for a day and linking up with one of the sections and following it through, you're still going to get something out of it. No, I loved every minute of it, even when I was cursing in my helmet because of some stupid thing that happened. And you just get better at it. It's one of those things. If it doesn't take that long before you get a handle on things and really kind of get into the swing of it, and you learn so much. I mean, I don't know how much of a better writer I am compared to when I started it.
I bet a lot better.
Yeah, you figure stuff out sometimes the hard way, but you figure it out pretty quick of like, oh, this is how I need to do this.
I love your point, Brady, that like these are accessible adventures, and don't let us, telling you that it shouldn't be your first trip out in the backcountry with a full loaded bike, but it's all so doable and so you can totally anybody can do it on any bike. It's just putting that date on the calendar, and sticking to it.
Well, and that was one of the, I was actually, I think when I was going through New Mexico, I was talking about this because the Northeast BDR film had gotten released publicly right around then. And one of the things I liked that you've started doing in the more recent ones is one, there's more women involved, which is always great. And then also having various skill levels. Because on Northeast, like you had Wendy, who was a fantastic writer, but hadn't practiced a lot, or on Wyoming.
Wyoming. Mm-hmm.
And she's a great writer, but she hadn't done a long distance motorcycle trip or camping trip or off-road trip. And so it was great to just kind of get the different perspective of someone who's not super comfortable with like I've done this in training, but I haven't actually been out on the trail and like watched the terrain change. And it was just good to have that differing perspective because when you have six experts just blowing through whoops at 40 miles an hour, it's not a realistic depiction of how everybody else is going to do it.
Yeah, her perspective was good because she trains people at the BMW Academy.
She's a great
Uh,
rider.
oh, absolutely. And she was in the 1200 GS. But yeah, when these obstacles are coming at you day after day, for hours on end, it's a different experience.
And just learning about like how do I pack my camping gear on my bike when I'm used to riding a clean bike and now all of a sudden I have this, it's like, oh, that's everything handles different.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric from Wolfman used to say, pack everything you need and nothing you don't. And then he would just always tell me, like, when you pack your bike, just look at things and try to take out as much as possible. Like, only take the essentials because it'll help you, to keep your bike lighter. And
I kind of had the advantage of coming from the military on that. So the rule on that was basically if you're not using it basically every day and it's not emergency equipment, you don't need it. Which for me, it gets a little bit complicated just carrying the camera gear. But, other than that, I'm not carrying much. So,
between camera gear and your tools, it doesn't, leave much space for, I mean, and camping stuff doesn't leave much space for anything else in your personal stuff.
all right. Anything else that you wanted to talk about or
No, just
things
thanks
that
for
you
the
wanted to?
opportunity. Yeah, no, I think you've really covered it really well. Great questions from your viewers,
Yeah,
and
thank my
happy to be
subscribers
part
because
of
I
it.
definitely wouldn't have come up with as good of questions.
Yeah, no, I'm really just excited for your journey, and you continuing kind of writing more with veterans, and just being out there in the community and telling your story, just inspiring people to go out and ride and to have these adventures. Yeah, thanks for being there.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
thanks
it's
for going
it's a
through this
wonderful
hard
community to be a
journey.
part of. So it's nice to be able to contribute, to give back to the people that are awesome that you run into in all these places. That's really all I had. So I really appreciate you coming on with me. I know it took us some time to get coordinated and all that because you guys are super busy. But yeah, I go from here to the Arctic and then I'll probably do Oregon when I get back. So I'll be able to do that. And then
Yeah, and I hope you make the 100-second movie for the film festival, or
I will, yeah, I'll stitch together because we had talked about doing like a long form thing. So I'll grab all my videos and do like a 5 minute roundup of everything.
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because that's kind of how we connected. You just submitted your film to the festival, right? And
Yeah, I mean, before I set out on my trip, I had kind of reached out to you guys of just like, hey, I'm gonna try and do this, just so you know. And so you'd sent me like stickers and stuff and all that. But yeah, no, it was the 100-second thing I've submitted, I think twice now. And yeah, I'll see if I can condense 11,000 miles of off-road into 5 minutes.
uh-huh, 1 second for each mile or
Just to,
something.
yeah, it'll be, I'm not even sure if it would be that long.
Well, I mean, all the best luck to you with your upcoming adventures. Like, I'm just really excited for you. I think, so many more opportunities are going to come out of it.
And
So
you just
good
keep
work.
doing great things because the BDRs are magnificent and it's wonderful to be a part of this community.
Great.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Brady.